friends, this is Karen Summy with Karen's Blue Ridge Stamping. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator and I really appreciate you joining me today. Today I'm covering slimline cards. This card style is very popular these days and you can make these beautiful designs without any special products. I hope you'll stay with me to the end to hear about a special offer I have for you today. Meanwhile, let's jump right in and look at how to make some slimline cards with whatever you have in your card stash. There are a couple of things I want to talk about before getting into my demonstration. First, you can mail these with a regular first-class postage stamp in the United States as long as they are 1/4 inch or less in thickness. Now, these slimline cards, according to industry standards, should be about 8.5 by 3.5 inches at finished size. And they can also be either portrait or landscape, just as your A2 card or any other card. Slimline cards can vary in size just a little bit, depending on your design and what envelopes you plan to use. While many suggest using a standard number 10 business envelope, I actually recommend a number 9 envelope, and we're going to talk about the differences. Both of these can be purchased at your favorite big box office supply store. And let's look at a size comparison. As you'll see, I've written the dimensions of this envelope on the front at 9.5 inches wide by 4 1/8 inches high. I've already said that your standard slimline card is 8.5 by 3.5. That means you have 1 inch of variance when you put this card into this envelope. That's a pretty big difference in an envelope. And let's look at how it looks on the inside. Now you'll also see before I show you that I have a number 9 envelope tucked inside the number 10, and I'll talk about the difference in a moment. But for now, let's put this 8.5 by 3.5 inch card in this number 10 envelope. You can see if I move it to one end, there is a lot of space left there, 1 inch of space, where that card can travel inside that envelope. Now, that may not seem like much, but when you're dealing with postal machines and the post office and machining and that sort of thing, that means you can get quite a bit of bend, and it just leaves a place where something could get stuck in a machine and possibly tear your card, and that would just be absolutely awful. Your recipient may not receive your card, and all of that effort that you put into making that beautiful design is now gone and to no end. So again, this is a number 10 envelope. It does have a place for slim lines, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I want to compare that with a card that we put in a number 9 envelope. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of difference in the sizes. Instead of the 9.5 inch width, you have 8 7/8 inch. Instead of the 4 1/8 high, you have 3 7/8. So, quite a bit of difference. Let's tuck our regular size slimline into this number 9 envelope and see how it compares. Now, got a little stuck there. Now we have very little movement from top to bottom. We only have a 1/4 inch difference at the top, and this still has plenty of room on this edge. This edge is not as critical because this edge doesn't get run through the machine in that direction. Now, the first sample I showed you is just slightly wider by 1/4 inch than my other card, and so I can also tuck that one in here. And I have a little bit less area at the edges, but it still fits beautifully into the number 9 envelope. So I absolutely recommend that you use a number 9 instead of a number 10. Now, I said that you could get both of these sizes in your regular office supply store, and you can. Number 10 is the typical. Number 9 is less typical, but businesses use these envelope sizes a lot for business reply mail. Again, both of these take first-class postage, one stamp at 1/4 inch thick or less. So those are some size comparisons with envelopes. Now, the next thing I want to do is talk about the cutting of your card base for a slimline card. So let me clear away this space and we will get right back into the cutting guides for a slimline card. Okay, I am here now with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. Now let me grab one of my slimlines that I showed you a minute ago and show you that this is exactly 8.5 inches tall. So what that tells you is you only need one cut for this standard size of slimline card. The 8.5 is already there for you on an 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper. Now I have a cutting guide I've made, and so what I'm going to do is just turn this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper sideways, and you'll see now that top to bottom you have 8.5 inches and you have 11 inches going this way. Again, you have one cut line and it's at 7 inches. And 1/2 of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. So you're going to score at 3.5 inches, fold that over, and then you have the finished size of your standard slimline card. Very, very simple. If you don't have number 9 envelopes, or you have a design that doesn't fit well within the standard 3.5 inch by 8.5 inch card front, you can make it a little bit larger. So let me show you the next alternative for a larger than standard slimline card. So what I need to do now is change and make this the direction of my card. Let me lay this down to show you. So now, and I don't have one that's 9 1/4 high, but I could. But you need to come in this direction with your card front. And you're going to cut it, if you want it to fit in that 9.5 inch wide number 10 envelope and just leave about 1/4 inch play, you could make it 9 1/4 inches tall, going this way. And then you're going to cut it 9 1/4 inches. And the next thing you need to do is make sure that it's still going to fit in your number 10 envelope going the other direction. So we've got the 9 1/2, but you only get 4 1/8 high. And so I am making it 3 7/8. So that leaves you 2/8 or 1/4 inch down from the top of the envelope. Now you need to make a secondary cut at 3/4 of an inch. This goes away, and 1/2 of this 7 3/4 is 3 7/8. You're going to score along this line, fold it over, and you have a finished card size. Okay, hope that all made good sense. With that said, I'm going to dive into my demonstration. I've already completed some of the standard work. I'll quickly walk you through the steps I've already taken, and you may see some measurements pop up on your screen so that it is helping to explain these for you. I want to tell you what I'm using this afternoon. The products I'm using are from the July to December 2021 mini catalog. And I have a couple of different products that I'm using. First of all, on page 45 of the catalog, we have this Blackberry Beauty 12 by 12 Specialty Designer Series paper, and it is truly gorgeous. Let me show you the sheets that I have used, and these are very similar to the card that I have been using throughout my video so far. So here are some of the sheets. You can see the sheen on these, the gold foil that is here. These papers are all double-sided, of course, and you get a couple of sheets of each design. There are several designs in here. I'm going to be using this particular paper for my demonstration today. The back side of it is also lovely. This is the paper that I used in the previous example, and just a little bit of it is showing through on the back, but this is a beautiful, beautiful set of designer series paper. And then I have a bundle that I'm using as well, and it's on page 56, and it is called the Nature's Harvest Bundle. Now these are the stamps in this particular stamp set. And what you'll see in the catalog, if you're not that familiar with it, anything that appears to be raised up off the surface or has a bit of an outline around the stamp means that there is a coordinating die that goes with it, or perhaps a punch. In this case, it is a die, and down here we have the dies. Now, another thing that people are not quite aware of at times is, even though you have stamps with dies, you have some stamps without dies, but also in the die set, you have some dies in this set that do not have stamps. And let me show you how they look when they're cut out. And I just put them on a Night of Navy background so that you could see them. So there are actually no stamps for these dies. So what you end up getting is an extension of everything. But I have made cards where I used almost exclusively dies without any stamps. So be sure when you're looking at a bundle of products, which you may know always comes at a 10% discount if you bundle them together, a lot of the times you will have dies that don't have stamps to them. So keep that in mind, and you can get a lot more mileage out of some of these things than you think you can. All right, with that said, I am going to show you how I did the slimline card, and the one I'm going to make is very similar to this one and many of the same pieces. So what I have is a card base, and that's the inside that I'll get to in a moment. A card base that I cut at 8.5 by 7, as I showed you earlier in the cutting guide. And then I scored it at 3.5 and folded it, and that gives me my card base. Now what I have next is the layer that goes right on top of the cardstock, and this is 8.25 by 3.25. So let me go ahead and start assembling some of these pieces now. This demo is really about slimline cards, and so there are certain things I didn't need to demonstrate necessarily, and other things that I did want to demonstrate for you. Sometimes you'll have a little glue stuck in the end of that, and you have to kind of loosen it up to get it going. You probably saw me use this little stand. I made this. It's literally a plastic cup, and I used some hot glue to put into the cup. Before it completely solidified, I stuck the lid of the green glue or Tombow multi-mono liquid glue down into that and let it set up, and now it just gives me a perfect stand for my glue, and it keeps everything traveling downward. So I kind of like that little stand. Now I am literally centering this piece onto the card base. I'll make sure I stay in frame there for you. The nice thing about liquid glue is if you don't have it exactly centered at the beginning when you lay it down on the surface, you have just a few seconds that you can have a little bit of wiggle room literally and move that around until you get it where you want it. So now we have the first layer on top of our card base. The next thing I'm going to add to the card base is this designer series paper. Now, what you're going to notice is that I have cut it. And there's a reason for that. I could use this as a whole piece, and I need to snip away one little place where I didn't quite get it even, and that's fine. I could use that as a whole piece and lay it down on there and put the next layer on top of it, and everything would be absolutely lovely. But why waste my designer series paper if I don't need to? Maybe I can use this little extra piece for something else. And so I've cut it away, and all I'm really being careful of is that the next piece that goes on top of that does not show that I've cut anything away from there, and so nobody will ever know the difference except for me. So I've cut this out. I'm going to glue the back side, and I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet. If you're not familiar with the craft sheet, this liquid adhesive, hot glue, tape, none of that will stick to this. And if you get the glue on it, you literally wipe it right off. You can wipe it off when it's wet. You can wipe it off after it's dried, but it won't stick to it at all, and you can just peel it away, and it leaves you a great surface. It keeps you from getting other work surfaces messed up with glues or tapes, and it's very handy to have. Now, I don't think there's an up or a down to this particular designer series paper. Some of them have that, so you have to be careful about it. And I'm being very careful not to, and I'm going to call it racking. I don't want to rack that, because since I've cut that center out, it could get a little askew and not lay flat, but I think that I've done okay with laying that down flat. All right, so that's glued to the surface, and that's ready to go. I'll lay this aside. The next thing that goes on the paper, flat down on the paper, glued, is this next piece of very vanilla cardstock. All of the whitish cardstock that I'm using today is very vanilla instead of pure white. I just thought it looked very elegant next to some of this other paper. Now, I've done a bit of a wider border on this, and so I actually trimmed this at 1/2 inch smaller than the other. So I've literally got 1/4 inch on each side. You can see there's more space than there was with previous layers, because I want to show off that designer series paper. So I made that a little bit smaller to go on top of there. All right, and then the next thing that I'm going to add to the surface are my flowers. Now, this is one of those dies that came in the Harvest Die set that does not have a stamp that goes with it. I've cut it out of cinnamon cider cardstock. It matches very well with the designer series paper. And people will treat these little slim die cuts a lot of different ways. Now, we have some glue that is called fine tip glue, and I'm sure it's easier to work with than what I have here, but literally I can make fine little dots, and I'm not making them as fine as I could right now because I'm not exactly over the top of this, and I can't see as well as I might to try to keep my head out of the camera, but I can put fine little dots of glue on these flowers. Sometimes if people are going to do very thin designs of die cuts, they will put an adhesive sheet on the back of it, and that way when you get your die cut, you already have adhesive on the back of it. That is absolutely fine. I don't have any of them in stock right now, so I am not doing that. And I'm just trying to work with my glue the best I can. And I've got glue on this craft sheet, and there you can see I wiped it right off. It's gone. It's not going to do any harm any longer. All right, and then I'm going to place this on my card. Now, using this one as an example, it's important, or it was important to me, that this looked like it was all one continuous stalk of flowers. And so what I did is start with the back set, and I placed it very high on the sheet. And the measurement that I had for the bottom of the stalk was about 2 1/4 inches up from the bottom. And so let me just put my ruler at 2 1/4 inches off of the bottom. I'm going to get glue on this. This piece also is glued directly down onto the cardstock. And I've got some nice large surfaces there I can put glue on, so I don't have to worry too much about getting off the edges, not as much as I did with the other die cut in cinnamon cider. So I'm just kind of moving this around, trying to hold it where there's not glue so I don't get it all over me. And you know, it's odd, but I found out, I used to lay things down and glue them, and I found out that if I held it in my hands, for some reason I get less glue on the paper itself. I don't know why that is, but it certainly has been true for me. So, all right, I'm going to take this, start up about that high at the 2 1/4 inch mark. And again, I'm kind of letting these flowers bleed off onto the bottom layers. And I'm just laying that down on the card. Now, for this layer, I did not leave it flat, and I have added Stampin' Dimensionals, or I'm going to add Stampin' Dimensionals to this particular piece to glue it down. So give me one moment to do that. Now, when I get down to places like this, and I want to be sure that my Stampin' Dimensionals are not exceeding the border of the design itself, I will cut them, try to make them smaller so that I can get these little pieces where I want them to go. And I think I'll put one right in there. And the other thing that you can do, don't forget about these borders that come with these dimensionals. They also have adhesive on the back of them. And so just cut pieces of those off and use those as well. Don't waste that adhesive, because everything is always a question about the budget, you know, for your crafting and that sort of thing. So use every little scrap of everything that you have in your card designs. Now, I have adhesive on the back of that. And what I'm going to do is simply come in here and see if I can sort of line up. And I'm looking at my sample to see where I want it to go. That's a little bit high. I think I had better luck when I tried this the first time with my first card, but I'm going to play with it until I get it where I want it. Nothing wrong with that. That was my problem. I was a little bit too far to the right. Okay, and this is within the boundary of the card, but still off of that very vanilla. And now we have a beautiful flower arrangement on the front of our card. We're showing plenty of the Designer Series paper to give it visual interest. And the only thing that's really left is the greeting on the front of the card. I've already done this one. I used the Harvest dies again for this. I used one of the stamps in Nature's Harvest in part of the bundle, and I stamped it with Versamark watermark ink, and then I used white embossing powder to put over the top of that and heat embossed it until it melted. And then I used Stampin' Dimensionals also to pop up the greeting on the back. Now sometimes I use like 2 Stampin' Dimensionals for this type of thing. Sometimes I might use 3. If I'm concerned that the space in the middle is so large that it may compress once it's on the card, I'm not terribly worried about that here, because this is a fairly small greeting, and I'm just kind of looking at it, trying to make sure that it's straight and pressing it onto the front of the card. And the front of the card is complete. So there you have it. And now all that's left is to glue the inside greeting onto the card. Well, it's time to wrap up this video, and I hope you'll stay with me just a couple of more minutes because I have a special offer that I promised at the beginning of the video. This is the card we've just completed. I hope you've seen through the demonstration today that you can use any stamp set you have, any Stampin' Up! Products that you have. You don't need anything special to make a slimline card. You really just need to make the paper in a little bit different configuration, and you can come up with a lovely design of your own for a slimline card. I also, at the beginning of this video today, showed you another card briefly, and this one happens to be a slimline trifold card, a slimline trifold. I didn't feature this in today's video simply because I'm running a bit lengthy and I don't want to keep people forever, so I have already recorded a second video featuring this trifold card, including the cutting guide for it. And I promised you that I had a special offer for you this afternoon. So, in addition to these two cards, I have a written tutorial that includes 6 slimline cards, and I'm going to show you the other 4 so you'll know whether you're interested or not. This is number 3. And it is the Counting Sheep set that recently appeared in the Celebration brochure. Now, if you didn't happen to pick up this set of stamps and dies, don't worry about that because this design will lend itself well to to other sets that we have that are available today. The Peekaboo Farm would be great for this, and there are several others that feature animals. And you don't even have to do animals. As long as they fit within the circles, then you are free to do any design that you would like to do. Then I have the Angels of Peace stamp set. This would be great for Christmas, and in fact I think this particular stamp set pairs very well with For Unto Us, which is also featured in the July to December mini catalog. Then the next card that I have is the Peaceful Cabin and To the Moon. These are 2 separate stamp sets. The Peaceful Cabin comes in a bundle, and so you can get the 10% savings if you get these in a bundle. This is very, very popular this year, and you can see why, because it makes just lovely cards. To the Moon obviously features this huge moon stamp. It is so easy to do, and you will love this design if you have one or both of these. And then finally, I have a butterfly card for our butterfly enthusiasts. It never goes out of style. And this one is the 6th card in the tutorial. So there you have it. I have a 6-card tutorial, and I will show you what it looks like. Now, there are 2 ways that you can get this tutorial. The first way is to enter a $50 product order with me as your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And if you do that, then I will send you this tutorial for free. The other way that you can get it is to purchase it from my website, and I have the link for both of those things just below this video. So I hope that you'll be interested in this. This is quite extensive. It is step by step, and it has 44 pictures in the tutorial. So it is step by step. It shows you everything you need to know to make these beautiful cards. And if you are confused about anything, you can always email me or leave a comment online, and I'll be happy to get back with you and answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your patronage. If you have not already, I hope that you'll hit the like button, the thumbs up at the bottom of the video. That does help me immensely on YouTube and will help me to continue to give you quality videos. Thanks so much again. Take care until next time. Bye-bye.